Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode number 215 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa. It's my favorite coffee. I drink it every morning. Sometimes I drink it twice a day. A lot of my friends are actually starting to drink Couchtown, which is pretty cool. So if you guys are interested in drinking coffee in the morning, which, you know, basically everybody does, check it out, couchtowncoffee.com. You find a coffee you like, you let them know how you want it roasted, and they'll ship it to your house. All you gotta do is grind it up and enjoy the coffee. Trust me, there's a lot of people I know that are converting because this is some of the freshest coffee they've ever had, and it's surprising how good it is. So check it out. And when you find a coffee you like, let them know Audible Farm sent you, and they will give you 20% off. You know why? Because Couchtown Coffee is that awesome. Thanks, Couchtown. This week is also brought to you by the patrons on the Patreon channel. Audiblefarm.com has Audible Farm has a Patreon channel at patreon.com/audiblefarm. It's $1 a month, and you can watch video versions of the podcast. We have a handful of patrons over there donating variable amounts of money. It costs as little as $1 a month. And you can watch video versions of the podcast. That's $4 a month, usually, roughly $50 a year for like $12 for the whole year. That's not too much. But otherwise, check it out. I got to say thanks to all the patrons over here. Lots of them over there. We got Nate, we got Eric, Vince, Ronley, Andy, Abby, Matt, Harold, Justin, the McAllister Hours, another podcast from Iowa that is also one of our patrons. That's pretty cool. We also have American Made Music, a band from Iowa that is also a patron. So thank you guys very much for being patrons. Check it out, patreon.com/audiblefarm. This episode, I am sitting down with Tim Sigler. Tim Sigler has been in a lot of bands. It's funny because we've met each other before, but we've never really sat down and had like an honest one-on-one long conversation. And this was basically the first one we ever had. And it was tons of fun. I had a great time sitting down talking, getting to know him. I feel like he's a guy that has a lot of stories and probably won't run out of them. And I'll tell you what, they're good stories too. From what I got out of him today, I think we're going to have him back on the podcast again. But he's the bassist of Elision, and he's also been in some other bands that I've either seen live or shared the stage with around Iowa. He's been very, very active in Iowa in the music scene, especially in the metal scene down near the Des Moines area and beyond. It's really cool to hear some of his stories, how he started out in Florida, who got him interested in listening to music, some of his fun stories about his first CDs he ever bought. I'm giving too much away. You're going to enjoy this episode. I know you are. I had a blast sitting down talking with Tim. Like I said, he's been in a handful of bands, and by a handful, I mean he's been in a handful of bands that have made albums and been decently established and had good production and stage presence and fan bases. So it's kind of cool to hear his story on all this. And like I said, I feel like we're just peeling the one layer of this onion at a time, and there's plenty more layers to go. But sit back and enjoy this one. This is a really fun one with one of my new friends out there in the music scene, Tim Sigler. He plays bass in Elision. Fun story. The first time anybody ever announced that band to me, they pronounced it wrong, and I pronounced it wrong in this podcast once. But it is Elision for everyone that needs to know how to pronounce it. If you say, how do I pronounce that? It is Elision. That's how you pronounce it. So, this is going to be an awesome one. It's episode 215 with my new buddy, Tim Sigler.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
All right, I'm sitting down today talking with Tim Sigler. Tim, I've actually seen you at some shows here and there around the Des Moines scene. You are currently the bassist of Elision. Am I right? The bassist? I'm pretty sure I saw that.
Right.
Yeah. I went to your guys' website. Your website's awesome.
Yeah, that's Sam's doing. When we picked her up, I didn't know she was like a interior designer for stadiums.
What?
So she designs insides of stadiums. That's her job. So she knows all this web stuff and marketing. That's her background. So she just kind of came in and was like, no, your guys' sites and what you're doing, I appreciate what you're doing, but I can do it better. And we're like, take it. And she's like, there's a website. She does all of our new merch lineup that we're doing now, designs. Like, you know, she's just a phenomenal add-on, actually. It's like impressive because I'm used to being the workhorse.
That's crazy. That's super cool that's, you know, that she's doing that. Did I say it right? No? He?
What?
Sam?
She.
Thought I was right on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you guys haven't realized by now, I actually haven't spent a terribly large amount of time in the Des Moines scene since COVID started. So it's been a while since I've been down there, but you have been in bands that I know I've at least shared the stage with or seen you play at one point in time down in Des Moines. Hours of Decay. I do recall seeing you somewhere, or at least seeing them somewhere, at least in my path. I listened to a pile of it today. Wild stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's funny because when we started Elision, Nolan's the guitarist, one of the guitarists for that band too. So when we started this project, people thought we were kind of coming out with the Hours of Decay sound.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of caught a little bit of slack from the people that aren't quite as open-minded, like, you know, this ain't metal. And I'm like, no, it's music, you know, like. But the thing is when Nolan and I started this project, we didn't want to be in those boxes. Because like him, you know, I call it being a hired hand. But when I came here, I got in the band with Apathy. I was the second bass player. Got in the band with Hours of Decay after that, second bass player. So you could help write, but you always had these limits you had to deal with. And then when Nolan and I found ourselves without a project, and we're like, we like all types of stuff, like Zappa, Primus, you know, Tool, and then you also got Nolan who likes these obscure thrash metal bands and Guts, and I'm a huge Dillinger fan, so we're like, you know what, let's just start a project, and if we want to write a really rocky southern rock song, we're going to do it, and then we're going to tear it up at the end, and you know, just kind of those concepts. If we want to go super heavy and technical, we're going to do it. So, and I think one of the best compliments, because we've been recording a lot, so I kind of like sneak our own songs out to other musicians during the process. And I think one of the greatest compliment I ever got was from Joe Youngbear from Reddit. He was like, you guys' stuff is deceivingly complicated. So I was like, thanks, man. That's a hell of a compliment. So
honestly, yeah, from one musician to another to say that something is complex, it's kind of that whole like jazz is music for musicians kind of deal, where it's like there's stuff going on here and I'm not 100% sure what it is. It's not just like open chords or power chords or just something super simple. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because I'm in plenty of bands that do plenty of stuff like that, and that's what a lot of music is. But I will have to say that when you sent me links to all of your projects you've been in over time, I started listening to them, and I started kind of realizing that like they're not the same from one to the next, when I feel like sometimes when people hop from band to band, the bands are kind of similar, you know, from this band to that band to this band or whatever. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, even from Apathy Syndrome to Hours of Decay, that was one where it's like, well, it's Des Moines metal or like, you know, Midwest metal or whatever. And it's all going to be kind of similar or whatever. And it's not. It's really not. So what I kind of want to do is we're going to put a pin in the Elision stuff in the Des Moines scene for now, but let's backtrack it just a little bit. Let's talk about how you got started playing music.
Oh, just music in general?
Yeah, like what was the thing that kind of got you into it? Was there like a band or one of your buddies or was
Oh, I remember this vividly. I went and I just moved to the East Coast from Arkansas. What was I, like 12? Or 13, somewhere around there.
A little bit of a culture shock, maybe?
Yeah, but so I'm riding with my brother-in-law, and he's playing all this music for me, like Nine Inch Nails, Korn, and I'm just like, and I've always been a fan of music, but like this was like stuff I haven't quite heard yet. Like, you know, of course, like I was a fan of Guns N' Roses when I was like 7, and like I've always been into music, but like that day we're just driving, I think we're going from South Carolina to Jacksonville, so he's playing me all this music, and then he pops in Primus, Pork Soda album.
Nice.
It just was like, blown away. And I was like, I looked at him and I was like, what's that sound? And he's like, that's a bass guitar. And I'm like, what's a bass guitar? And is there like 5 of them in the band? And he's like, oh. And so when we got to where I was moving to, I worked a full summer mowing lawns and bought my first bass and my first amp.
Nice.
So around 15. And it's just because that Primus album and the Korn album and, you know, the Trent Reznor stuff. But like that album just was like, I want to be a bass player. Because I never heard anything quite like that. You know, bass-wise, it stands out. It's not just in, you know, getting mixed where it just blends in, where it's there, but it's not type of concept. And it just really spoke to me, and I've been playing bass ever since. So
that's a really good point, though, too. Like, I still recall one of the first times I heard somebody playing what I would call like a lead bass of some sort, you know. And ironically, like, it was just before I had heard of Primus. I was probably in like, I don't know, like 9th grade, something like that, 8th grade, somewhere in there. And one of the jazz band teachers was like, watch this video. And it was some guy slapping a bass in like a jazz band fashion. And like my brain exploded. I was like, what in the world? I've never even thought this was a thing that was possible. And then, like you said, you go over to the Primus stuff and it's like, oh, this guy's like playing the bass like a banjo or something. He's going nuts on this thing.
All over it was amazing.
Yeah.
It's the reason I play bass. So
that's really cool, actually. It's a fun story too, because you know you get the influence of somebody from the outside to kind of help you be like, this, check this out or check that out or whatever. And it's fun because a lot of times it's people's like older siblings or things like that, or like you know, usually you get a lot of guys like, oh, my older brother liked, you know, this, so he showed it to me or whatever, and I liked it. So like yours was your brother-in-law, though, you said.
Yeah, but you know, like I somehow always found my way into music, because remember those BMG things? Like the BMG, like send in 12 cents, you get like 12 records.
Oh, yeah.
So when I lived in Arkansas, I had to be like 7 or 8, somewhere around there. And, well, I have the same name as my dad. So I live at the foothills of the Ozarks, so there's nothing. So, and I have this stereo with nothing, so this comes in the mail. I picked these random stuff, not even knowing who they are, and they came in, and then I just was like, oh, not bad. Like, I ordered Steely Dan,
yes,
AC/DC, Kiss, Metallica, like Dave Matthews Band, like, you know, which I don't know, maybe that's kind of the way why I am now. It's because I've always fell into like these weird things where it's like I've always liked all types of music from just being a little boy. So it's just, I mean, I can't remember the quite other ones I've chose, but they were a little, I think I got some Graham Norton in there, like just all over the place.
Dude, that's so awesome. That's so cool. Especially if you're picking them out kind of blindly. Like, you named a few of the bands, and I'm like, oh, cool, heavy bands. And like, just by names, if you didn't know them, I'd be like, Steely Dan, I bet they're heavy as hell. And it's like, well, not really, but
it was just great names. I didn't even know what different genres were. I just was like going through his catalog. Check, you know.
That's so cool. I also think that's something, I don't want to say it's like just metal people have it, but I feel like metal people are either one way or the other. Like people that kind of lean into metal music or play metal music and things like that. We either like all the music or we are kind of picky about the music, you know?
Well, I like to say, like, I'll speak for Nolan and I, because we're metalheads, but then we're open-minded, but we're very closed-minded at the same time. Like, we like the other things, but we like what we like. We don't like the full, let's say if it's funk, we don't like the full funk genre, but we'll pull out Bootsy Collins bands, you know, you know, that type of stuff. You know, like I'm very selective in my other listenings. So
yeah, I mean, it's still though one of those things. I feel like that's still a benefit to you and everyone else around you, because that's not necessarily always the case, especially with like I said, especially with the metal musicians, because you even said that like when you started Elision, when you started Elision, we had to talk about that before the podcast. Anyways, when you started Elision, you said people were kind of like, wait a second, this isn't necessarily the metal we were expecting, but like metal is such a wide genre that it's really not super definitive, and there's not really like a hard and fast rule of like you've went past rock and now you're in metal. You know, there's not really like anything like that. So I feel like a lot of us actually take a lot of our influences, whether or not we know it, that aren't necessarily metal, and kind of toss them in there a little bit here and there.
But it's way, way better now. Like, because I grew up in Florida, you know, my teens were, I graduated in 2002. So all through the 90s, the big grind metal, death metal movement, you know, like Orlando, I was 3 hours away from it. You know, like a lot of my first projects after I got past the punk stuff, which I like punk, but the stuff I started doing stuff was like more on the extreme metal side. But I've always had this weird thing where I want to bring other influences in, which was a huge no-no in the 90s. Either, you know, it was either grind metal or death metal. You can't mix them. And then you have my weird ass that's a huge Mr. Bungle fan trying to bring those influences into metal. And you know, I caught so much shit all the time. But I remember going to watch, one of my favorite bands is Fall at Carnage. They're out of Colorado, and they're like a jazz fusion metal band. Like, they go heavy, but they have these nice jazz breakdowns. Phenomenal artists. And I seen them open up for Cannibal Corpse, and I seen everybody turn around and flip them off. You know, and I'm like, I'm up there like, these guys are amazing, and I'm just like, what is wrong? So, but then, you know, through the years, you had these Spice Icon, you know, Agnostic Front, and Anthrax kind of brings a little bit of the gap in that era too. So it's like that everybody started getting along, which blows my mind now. 20 years later, like, it's so acceptable to everybody to mess genres, when I grew up in an era where it's a no-no. So actually, like, I still get a little bit nervous before I play shows now, especially with the type of music we're writing, which nobody really, you know, we don't fit anywhere. And then we brought in a female vocalist. And so sometimes I still get a little nervous trying to see what the crowd's going to do or what they're going to treat us like. But then I'm like, then I get a fuck it switch. Fuck it, let's just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that happened to I Hate God. Well, we're on that show, and we were direct support before the two touring acts. And I looked out, and, you know, I'm like, man, this crowd probably eat us alive, you know. Because with our vocal switch, Sam makes it sound a lot lighter. So I remember sitting there looking at Wade, and I'm like, dude, are we going to paint up? How do you feeling? He's like, I don't know, man. And then finally I just that switch, like, screw it, dude. Who gives a shit? Let's go out there and play. Like, let's go out there, have fun. You know, they'll appreciate what we put on, and if not, oh well. And then I remember looking out, and Lefty's is shoulder to shoulder. There's a part where we kind of naturally just swing, and the full crowd's swinging with us. Yeah. And I'm like, these evil people, like these angry people are appreciating our music. And then I had people come up after us and was just like complimenting on our sound and how unique it was and how different. And I was like, but where's the but? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, normally people come up, since we got Sam, say, we like you, but, or this, but. And there was like no buts afterwards. There was no asterisks, you know. And it really made me feel good. Like, well, we can win over the I Hate God crowd in the, you know, we index case crowds and all those. So it was, you know, it was me, you know, kind of, I guess maybe not being accepting of a crowd, which is weird because I appreciate everybody, but still, like, what was that saying? Know your audience. Yeah. But when you really don't know what your audience is, how do you know your audience? So,
I feel the pain, man. I know exactly where you're coming from. The downfall is the benefit. Like, you don't fit in anywhere, but that makes it. Guess what? Now you fit in everywhere because of that. Like, you can play with the punk bands, you can play with the rock bands, you can play with the metal bands, you can play, you know, anything in that like third of music. You can just be like, I fit in here now. We can play with any of these bands, and we're gonna stand out, you know. And that's beneficial. I mean, as you know, I play Three Finger Betty. We play, you know, pretty much just like hard and fast punk music, rock and roll, something kind of in that area. But that's usually our thing too, is we'll go on these shows with these metal bands, and it's like, well, you're not really metal, but it's different, and I kind of dig it, you know. Or you go play with these kind of pop punky kind of bands or things like that, leaning closer into the emo and things like that. And it's like every now and then you get a gig with one of those, and it's like, well, this band was different, but they kind of still fit, kind of, you know. So I do enjoy it when a band doesn't quite fit a genre, and that just gives you flexibility that not all the other bands have, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it does open up a lot of opportunities, but then again, it also kind of shuts off some opportunities at the same times,
Mm-hmm.
like nobody's going to put us on a beat down show, even though we have beat down elements here and there, you know.
True.
So, but
Yeah.
it's fun. We were playing those beat down shows. You can tell once we hit those beat down moments, the crowd would go off, but then they wouldn't know what to do because we switched from those real quick,
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, they this slamming thing into this freaking 3/4 to a 7/3 riff. What the hell's going on?
That's also really. I love that kind of stuff too. When you're like in the crowd and you're watching a band, you're just kind of paying attention. You're bobbing your head to it, and you're like, "Wait a second, I'm not on the snare anymore. What happened here?" Oh.
Yeah. It's odd because now it's when we first started. We started playing, and me personally, nobody's. I've been a figure of the music scene for a while. I played in a couple of the bigger local bands, but, so everybody knows I can bring a stage show and I can play, but nobody really knew how far, we could go from one realm to another, go from super to heavy, tell a story, drive a line along, and so when we first started playing, it was people just like tilt their heads and stare because they didn't know what they were listening to. I remember like, man, I hate when people do that. And I was like, I don't. I love it. It means they're paying attention.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's kind of like, I wish you guys would be like, throwing chairs and moshing. Not really, but like, I wish you guys would be having a good time. But at the same time, that's like exactly like you said, they're paying attention. They're intrigued by what's going on. And that's awesome.
Well, yeah. And like, I still get weirded out because now 2 years later, people will start pits in areas, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting,
It happens.
And that comes from a guy like me because I don't go into pits. Like, I'm the guy in the back that just wants to drink his beer and bob his head and chill, enjoy it in, just look at the stage show, analyze the guitar and drum, kind of just. And I like standing by the soundboard because I want to hear whatever the sound guy's mixing. Because it's going to sound better right where he is, because that's the point. That's the focal point. That's how he's mixing everything.
Bingo.
A lot of times see me back there, and people just look at me because, what kind of show I put on, and they just think I'm this, like, maniac all the time. And I'm like, no, I want to come out, drink beer, soak in the music, be a little buzzed and chill. And, a lot of people are like, oh, you're just the guy in the back of the room, those memes and those, all those things, the guy with his arms crossed in the back, just like that. Well, those guys is the people I kind of play to. Like, I want to get their attention because, the rest of them will appreciate it. But like, those are the ones that like you can impress, the guys in the back of the room that's just soaking in the music. If you can get them, you can probably get the rest of the crowd.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So, like, let's go back to talking about Florida just a little bit. For those that don't know, like you said, in the like 90s, I'd say like from the early to the mid to the even in the late 90s, Florida was full of some of the heaviest metal. Like,
oh yeah,
it was weird because I didn't realize that was a thing until like maybe 10 years ago, and which I'm 20 years late on it, by that point in time. But how did you you were talking to me before this about how you kind of there's like, that was during the pop punkish era when you kind of started playing music, going down there and playing stuff. How did you kind of like decide metal was where it was at? Because I got to be honest, I was super into pop punk growing up, and that's where I started. So
I never was a pop punk fan, but I was an Op Ivy fan.
Oh, yeah.
Hellcat Records, So my first band was actually a punk band. Even though I didn't know how to tune my bass because we didn't have YouTube then or whatever, and I was poor. So it's like I try to learn everything by ear. So like the first 6 months was I had my fucking bass strung upside down, like, so until I ran into this guy, he's like, hey, I want to do this band. And then I'm like, okay, I know how to play bass. He's like, you do? I'm like, sure. And, so I started playing, taught me how to tune. And I just kind of, just all my friends were into like the Hellcat Records and old school Op Ivy. And then they were getting into, Goldfinger and shit like that. And
that's the golden era of like what people, the pop punk, that's where it started, and that was the best stuff, was like that era.
yeah, I enjoy a lot of that stuff. But then I don't know. I always had metal in my life, like we were talking earlier, and I got scouted basically by like, what was I, fucking 16 years old by these, because we lived in Kings Bay, Georgia, right above Jacksonville, Florida. It was a naval base. That was most of the stuff, but you have the outlier areas, and these are the guys that were into like Cannibal Corpse and sludge, sludge metal, Incantation, and they needed a bass player, and they're like, hey, you want to join our band? And I was like, is it metal? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I want to play metal. So but I'm in the band with like these 23-year-olds, and I'm fucking 15.
That's awesome.
Like learning chops, and they just fed me Cannibal Corpse. Like there's VHS tapes. They're like playing me shit, and I was watching Cannibal Corpse bass player, and there's a break where he's just like all him, and I was like, I want to know how to do that. I actually had to get that tape 3 times because that section got wore out because I was trying to learn his technique.
That's old school.
And that's just how I ran off, man. I started doing that, and then, my first band, it was right before the new metal wave. I had a band called Colobos.
Okay.
I think. Was it Colobos? Or we had a different name? I don't think we officially had a name, but we did like a 4-song EP at a Hole of the Pigeon in Jacksonville, which is a full nother, because that guy ended up starting A1 Studios. And so it's weird knowing this guy's produced 3 of my records. The Transpose and my first demo, but he's did Paul Abdul albums, Limp Bizkit albums, like you have this world-renowned guy that's fucking around with my ass. like weird, like starting with him when he just started, and then circa 10 years later, and I'm recording Transpose albums, and a lot of his clients were Virgin Record clients. So
that's crazy.
All over the place, but
it never clicked until you said Limp Bizkit. Yeah, they're from Jacksonville, so yeah. I mean,
Limp Bizkit, and then you got Shinedown, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, which I was on Transpose's first album, Retribution. That's kind of how that happened, because they were on a small label. I can't remember the sound of the studio. That's before A1. Same guy, Paul's the producer in that studio too, and whoever owned it, I wish I could remember the studio name, got Red Jumpsuit basically a deal where, hey, record a demo for us, blah blah blah, we'll do all the work, and he's the one that got him their like $13 million contract.
Oh my gosh!
And he's trying to push us at the same time, but he doesn't know how to push us, because if you listen to the Transpose albums, it's like that was way before its time, I guess. Musically, a lot of blending, I guess, and so we got the offer like, hey, do a demo, but we want to keep all the rights. And we looked at him like, no, because you're doing such a horrible job trying to figure us out anyways. We'll still use your studio. You gave us a discount, and we paid for that 13-song album out of our own pocket. So
whew. Yeah, that's a tough one too, especially like that's something that a lot of us, I don't know if we would know what to do in this situation where, like, I think a lot of us, if we were presented with a, like, hey, here's the deal I'm giving you, and it might not be the best deal, some of us might just be like, yeah, whatever, sign it away or whatever, you know? Kudos to you for sticking to your guns, though, because, like, you got to kind of know that, like, if you're just going to give, you're making art and you're basically just, like, giving it away to someone else, and it's like, well, if they sell it, they get it, and I'm just, like, beholden to a contract to do what they tell me to, So...
Well, then another thing was they all were like, hey, we want to try to do the image thing and stuff. Because, remember Red Jumpsuit, when they came out, they had a full image that was developed right when they hit, and which a lot of bands now are doing that. They have this full image that they're bringing out. But back then, it was kind of like that turn from where everybody would do the glam rock and dress up to versus the grunge era versus death metal era, like, where it's like kind of got back and just come and look however you do on the street, back to, all right, we're going to start doing these product build a product and release it. So
yeah, I'm on the fence one way or the other. I totally get it when a band looks like that, professional look, like they're like, oh, you guys all gotta have the hair covering one eye, and everyone's gotta look sad. We gotta wear blacks, whatever you want to do, whatever band it is. But like you said, I miss those era of like just come in dressed in whatever you got on the street and just walk in, jeans and a ripped up shirt and just play the guitar and leave. Like those were the days. I loved that kind of stuff. Everyone in the crowd looked exactly like everyone on stage.
Yeah. I love it too, but you're also talking to a guy that paints up too, so
yeah. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Like I said, Kiss wouldn't be Kiss if they didn't put the makeup on first. If you didn't have the look first, a lot of these bands wouldn't be who they are. I mean, you can argue one way or the other for some of that.
Like not painting up or dressing up or anything. Most transpose, nope. Main thing I would do is I'd pick a set of clothes that were stage clothes, and that was it. Like, it was the same set of clothes until they got screwed up, and then I'd do a different set of clothes. But, like, it was nothing like a uniform, but it was normal. It was like, these are my playing shorts, this is my playing shirt.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. But it just, when I moved here, like, I was always a big fan of Guar, like a huge fan of Guar. And that shock rock and, avant-garde stuff, and so when I got here and the first band I joined was Apathy, which was like, they were just hitting their prime stride. Like, I think I came in, they needed a bass player, and they were getting ready to play Mushroom Head in a week. Didn't have my own bass, didn't have my own amp anymore, like, because I gave up on music. Like, I was like, when I moved here, I was like, I'm done. I'm out of it. I moved here to take care of my mom. She got sick. So that full 2 years of taking her, she passed away, I didn't play. I didn't do nothing. I just took care of her and worked. And then when she was passing away, she's like, Tim, you need to start playing. Like, you're miserable. You've always been a musician. She's like, and, she's always been my biggest supporter. She's like, when this is done, you need to start playing again. And I think about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, she had a stroke and finally passed away. And then, I was like, well, my biggest supporter, was just laying there and says I should play, and I kind of gave up playing for her, and now she's kind of not here. So maybe I should start playing again. And then I think like 2 weeks later, I ended up in apathy syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And I came in, tried out on some other bass rig, somebody else's bass, and they're like, you got the job. I'm like, oh, shit. And then I think a day later, they're like, you're playing the Mushroom Head show. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, cool. Okay.
Open it up for Mushroom Head. Like, all right.
Yep. I called in a couple favors because, my sister and her kids are here. And because Uncle Timmy played bass when their kids wanted to play bass. Right. Mm-hmm. So there, I went and ganked their bass guitar and went and bought a cheap amp and was on stage, and I couldn't even afford a mask because they wore masks. Mm-hmm. Like at the time, like I literally was so broke, I couldn't even afford a mask.
Oh wow!
Like, I actually went and got a fake, like this crappy, weird mask because I didn't understand their concept or whatever. I didn't know what they wore, and I'm sitting there with this just janky pulled over mask where they have these elaborate masks, and it was a good time though. But yeah, I hit apathy, and then like, oh, I get to dress up and develop characters. Like mm-hmm. It was really awesome being able to, put on a mask and kind of a little bit more of a uniform, and to bring a character to life. And I really like that concept also. So I like just going to be over there with no get up or whatever, but also the character aspect really just intrigues me. Like I can just like get in my uniform, like now Elision, paint up, and just kind of get lost. Like it's kind of like getting stage ready, mm-hmm. or flipping the switch for me. Like now just putting on that uniform and get a little bit of paint on, it just helps me. I don't know. I've always been in touch just to go that extra switch where I can separate myself a little bit more than from my normal self.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like taking the audio art and you're adding like visual art to it, or stage performance a little bit to it, by, like you said, creating this character. And it's kind of nice, I bet, because I bet you can almost like I don't want to say like hide out in a crowd that way, you know, like, cause it's just like, it's easy to notice you're the guy on stage playing bass guitar instead of, you know, someone's not just going to walk up to you and be like, Tim, how you doing? You know, like, you know, I mean, do you have I guess like you don't, but like, have you ever been in a band where you gave each other like names or something like that as your character or something?
Well, Apathy, they all had nicknames and stuff, I guess, really.
Nice. Nice. How did you end up hooking up with them? Actually, did we talk about that? Because I know you said you kind of got a hold of them, and within 2 weeks you were kind of in the band.
We had a friend, and like I had one friend, and she was their merch girl. Her name's Jen Thacker, and we crossed paths, talked a couple times or whatever, and then it was just really just kind of what happened yesterday. I play bass. Oh, I know somebody with a bass player that needs a bass player. Got an opening. 2 days later, I'm there practicing. And then like a week later, I'm opening up for Mushroom Head in Des Moines. Nobody knows who the hell I am or my background or anything. They're just like, oh, this guy can play, you know. And then that's just how I started my career in Des Moines.
That is wild. It's perfect happenstance.
Yeah, which is weird because I get all these weird opportunities, but like, you know, some stuff just kind of always crumbles too. Like, you know, like when I was in Jacksonville, you know, Transpose, we signed 2 record contracts that went null and void, you know, because of other members. There's a lot of people back in the day, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
You know, all the members have to be on board because this is what we want. We don't want to rework it. So if one member bails, then bye-bye. So that's kind of what happened the first time. The second time, we actually won a deal from doing like this Project Independent Battle of the Bands. And my vocalist at the time didn't tell me he was moving to Japan. So we won. We were going to get like free gear, a bus, you know, one CD deal. And then he's like, sorry to tell you, I'm moving to Japan. I can't do nothing about it. And I'm like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
So it's like I've always been knocking on that door, but then again, I'm not even upset about it because I have so many stories. Like, you know, I used to play on the same concrete as Yellow Card before they went to California.
Okay.
Like, we used to do DIY shows, like at Still Aboard Sports.
Oh,
you know,
cool.
We would set them up in Brunswick, Georgia, Kingsland, Georgia, which is Kings Bay, Georgia, Jacksonville. So we'd all just kind of do our own DIY in front of board sports shows. So
that's freaking awesome. What do you think the biggest culture shock when you first got up to Des Moines was when you first started playing music up here? Like compared to down in Florida, what was the biggest difference compared to there?
There wasn't. It really isn't. I mean, this is more. I got to think Des Moines at the time was more metal focused, but you know, you got to think of the pride of the 515, you know, because me being born here and I was on the coast when I got a leaked demo, you know, or a copy demo of Slipknot, I was proud. Even though I haven't been home in 10 years, you know, or whatever. I'm like, hell yeah, that's Iowa, you know, being proud. So it wasn't, what's the word? It didn't surprise me when I moved here and seen how thick the metal scene was at all. Like it was, but now back then though, the difference between 8-10 years ago versus now, it's back then it felt like there was a lot of gatekeepers and you had to be, you know, kind of let in or be exclusive crowd and then now it seems like it's way more open. Like it doesn't matter if you're jump metal or southern metal or light rock or everybody seems to get along now and support each other and everybody goes to each other's shows, you know, which versus when I first got into doing it, it felt like a lot of high school stuff, you know, like, well, they do that or this or that. And I'm a fan of clapping on people on the up constantly, you know, and supporting everybody. So I never really got the fact like, oh, they're doing this. So I'm like, no, good they're doing that. Like when Green Death started breaking out, that actually helped Hours of Decay because it put light on us. So instead of being mad they were doing good, I'm like, hell yeah, let them do good. Like, I don't mind if I get some of their trickle down metalheads. Like, good, somebody's doing something. You know, I'm just proud of anybody shooting for something. And I think nowadays in this era, I think a lot of us are actually generally happy for each other and what we're doing. Like, I'm not getting this hint of, you know, jealousy anymore like it used to be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I've played music. Okay. So I'm just barely a few years younger than you. Graduated in 06. I think you said 02 for you, something like that.
Yeah, good memory.
Cool. It's working better than I thought.
Keep reminding people how old I am.
Well, me too. But still, it's one of those things where, like, I didn't play music a lot in the Des Moines scene because, everyone was so freaking talented 10, 15 years ago down there. I mean, it's packed, you know, and then it was just also like, I don't know if I fit in down here. I don't have the chops. And even if I did, I don't know if they, you know, let me in. I don't know who to join a band with or who to talk to or anything. But, you know, a few of my buddies' bands ended up, you know, going down there, playing, doing pretty good and stuff. But it is like you said, it was a little bit more difficult to get on, you know, the bigger shows, and a little bit more difficult to kind of gather the attention of the scene, even though it sounds weird, but I feel like there was a bigger fan base back then. Like, there were more people that were at every show, like, every night. It was just kind of like everyone was like, we're all going to the Muse tonight, right? And it's like, yeah. You know, there was like 50 people at the House of Bricks because that's just where everybody went, you know, and I like that. I miss that. There still is some of that to an extent, but it's little less.
I feel nowadays like people just don't have that hangout music spot. We have the music spots, but it's not like the hangout like it used to be. Like, you know, like you said, the House of Bricks, you ain't given time, you go in there, there's something going on, and there's a crowd of people because that's just what they did. They went and hung out. And I really think actually that's actually a good point. A lot of people nowadays just don't go and hang out in gatherings anymore. It's always split or so.
Exactly.
So I agree.
Yeah.
But so back to Jacksonville, the big difference was Jacksonville was a lot more cutthroat than Des Moines was 10 years ago, actually. Ooh. Super cutthroat. Like, bad cutthroat. Even if you made it, bad cutthroat. Like, I remember playing this place called the French Quarter, and Red Jump Super Apparatus guitarist and Shinedown's guitarist started a side project. And so they came in and bumped me off my own headline show. Because those guys, I'm like, did you really have to do that? You guys got these multi-million-dollar contracts. I'm the one that just packed this place, and then you guys are coming and doing that? Like, that's just the epitome of Jacksonville, though. So in that era I grew up, there was a couple bands that didn't really have egos that we got along with, like New Day, Fed Up. So we actually always used to travel in packs because we knew, like, we had each other's backs and we're not going to cut each other's throats, and, you know, because there'd be a lot of screwed up things going on. But Jacksonville got a revive because a lot of people from Boston and other areas in that early 2000 era, 2005, Jacksonville just got a huge infusion of music. So that's how I got in Transposed, is the singer and guitarist came down from Boston because it was too crowded up there. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, too many bands. And then they came down and spotted me and my drummer from Ashes of Osiris and was like, yo, this is what we're doing. And that's how that band started. But just guys come down traveling to the Jacksonville scene. But yeah, Jacksonville was pretty cutthroat. It was, yeah. So when you found people you got along with in other bands, you kind of just, all right, we're family now, you know? So you kind of just do these little groups.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of weird. You're talking about, like, you know, established musicians almost like coming in and just being like, I'm the headliner now, because they can walk into the venue and everyone's going to be like, oh wow, so and so's here or whatever. Yep, it's not a whole lot different than the comedian scene. Like, you go out, you know, onto the West Coast where the comedians are at, and it's just like, well, Dave Chappelle walked in the door. Guess what? He's headlining now. He's just going to walk up on stage. Like, did you have 15 minutes scheduled? Well, too bad. Not only is your 15 minutes gone, but the next 5 people's are gone too, because he's going to go an hour and a half, you know, or whatever. And
it was an awful night because we had to go up after them. And then, of course, when they're done, they want to go out in the crowd and hang. So, of course, like, Hometown Heroes just came and did this exclusive set. Who cares who the headliner is, you know?
Yeah.
Even though most of those people came to see us, at the same time, it's like, I get it. They don't want to see us now. You got these guys on MTV and touring, and also they just pop up, you know?
Yeah.
My attention towards them a little bit, too. I can see the point of it, but I'm like, man, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So,
I understand. Dude, it's the equivalent of like, you're pretty much just like, I'm going to make a giant meal for everyone. Show up. And then they showed up and someone's just like, here's some pizza. And they just like brought pizza over and fed it to them before your meal was done. And you were like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
It's
funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I'd eat the pizza too. It's good pizza, but still it's like, you came here for the meal, man. You gotta enjoy the meal.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
Oh, it's so fun. So it's kind of cool that you ended up like just kind of running up to Iowa, just kind of running into some people that or talking to some people you already knew, and they were just kind of like, hey, so I know somebody that's looking for, you know, a bassist, and it just kind of in you go into Apathy Syndrome, into Hours of Decay. How many albums did you end up doing with Apathy Syndrome? I think I saw 2 online.
There was a demo. I think I'm still on the second album. I mean, their actual album. I didn't do the bass parts, but I helped write a little bit of stuff on there.
Okay.
Like, you know, because we kind of split our own ways. Actually, I got fired. So I'm the old grump that's been in the music scene forever. And at the time, they're all, you know, way younger than me. And then, like, they kind of approached stuff completely different than I did, which I didn't understand. So I was always devil's advocate. So,
yeah.
So I know how that can get old and stuff. So basically my ability got me in, but the way I am got me out. Like, you know, and I don't even have any feelings, man. I get along with all, like, Zach's playing drums for All Things Lost. AJ's DJing for Safe Space. We all still talk. We get along. You know, that was years ago, but it's like still at the same time, it's like some personalities just don't move well. And then especially when I feel I always have to take the leader role. Like, that's just me. That's my personality. And that's hard when you have a band with that many people where everybody wants it. So somebody's always going to piss off other people. And that was me. Well, you know? But I've grown a lot. And, like, you know, I'm very abrasive, and I just kind of speak what comes to mind. And I kind of can see how that would piss people off. Like, I'm not naive about how I am, but
yeah,
you know, it's,
you also do need that devil's advocate, you know, in a band, especially if you have a goal that you're trying to achieve. You kind of do want somebody to be like, if somebody's like, this is the direction we should go, you kind of want somebody to be like, what about this, this, and this, you know, or, you know, just to kind of like test the waters to see what the best option is, you know. But you also kind of have to be on the same page as everyone, as in, like, are we all going the same direction to the same destination too? Because I mean, I've been in bands where it's like, I want to make this like as official as possible. I want to make, you know, websites and t-shirts and the whole 9 yards. And sometimes the band was just like, we just want to play music. We really don't want to do any of that stuff. And it's like, well, all right, you know. And then it's up, you know, then it's like, well, do I want to stay here? And it's like, you know, it's up to me now, because it's everyone else decided that's the direction they want to go with it. And I think that's, you know, good and bad, you know, and bands breaking up or people getting, you know, fired or quote unquote, whatever the terms anyone wants to use. But like when bands break up, it's not an easy thing, because it's, regardless of what you're trying to achieve, it's 3, 4, 5, 6 people or whatever that
you're in a relationship with them. And you're not only in a relationship with them, you're in a relationship with their families too.
Yeah. And
like, it's not just the band. I think a lot of people confuse that. You're not just in the band with the guitarist. You're in the band with that guitarist, his wife, and kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just at face, that's it. So you really become like a close-knit family. And then so anytime something happens that's upset, somebody leaves or gets let go, it's never an easy decision.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know how to describe it with people, but it's like, imagine you're trying to have like a business with like 3 or 4 of your best friends, but it's literally almost like a relationship, but nobody gets to have sex and you're not physically attracted to one another. And that's a band. It's like, it's just a whole pile of awkward while you're trying to make music is all it is.
I'm like, oh, yep. It's like you're all a bunch of 70-year-olds because you're in a relationship, but there's no way you're banging each other. So.
It's so funny. The band thing is just, it's so tough. There's people that have like never been in them that are just like, I don't get why bands would break up, you know? And I mean, to an extent, I kind of understand it, but I've been in bands that have broken up and it's sad. It's a sad deal, but it's unfortunate, but it's just the way it goes.
It's all about, communication too. And
oh, it's so big, so big.
Watch what you say sometimes or whatever, but
pick your battles.
Yeah, but I also think it's part of the thing where you guys have to get along, and everybody's not everybody's cup of tea. Sometimes people just act the way they are, and that's just the way they are, and sometimes that don't get along with other people. Yeah, which normally I'm the one that's the weird one that nobody really likes to get along with because it's fucking weird. But so I blame anybody, for real. I'm blessed, Elision, because, once I start writing and I have ideas, there's no stopping. It's like, all right, I got this keyboard idea. And then I was like, you're playing keyboards, this is what I hear in my head, do whatever you want to do. And then it's like, all right, this is the guitar idea I have. I'm not the guitarist, but this is what I hear in my head. If you want to do something different, that's cool. This is what I'm hearing on drum, I just have to get it all out. And then it's like, all right, let's figure it out. But a lot of times people think that might step on people's toes or whatever. I'm like, no, these are just my ideas. Other than that, I don't give a shit what you do, but this is what I hear in my head. I just got to get it across. And that's when somebody kind of comes in full force like that, it can be, people take it weird. But at least Wade and, Nolan left us, but our new guitarists, they get it. Wade does the same shit to me. He'll come in. He's like, I absolutely can't play guitar, but this is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm hearing on bass. Here's the drum thing. And he'll play like 5 minutes of drums. He's like, all right, what do you got for that? And I'm like, I don't know. But I think a lot of people confuse enthusiasm with abrasiveness.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So when people kind of like, oh, you're being like overpowered, and I'm like, no, I'm just excited. Like, I'm just excited at the idea, Mm-hmm. Sorry if it's coming off aggressive, but that's how passionate I am about it, So.
I think it's a good way to build a song, though, too. If you're just like, I've kind of got this basic shell of what my part might sound like, and I think yours might go something like this, but have at it, And like, I don't mind that. That's kind of what John does in Three Finger Betty. He's like, here's the riffs I'm playing. Play whatever you want, I just kind of want the song to go like this, and it's like, all right, A to B, and when we have something down, we sit down and analyze it. It's like, let's change this part and that part and this part, and wham, we got a song, And I enjoy that aspect of being in a band. I'm not the best songwriter. I can come up with licks here and there and stuff, but I have a hard time like combining them into like a full actual song. So I enjoy it when somebody comes to me. We're going back to the food thing. I enjoy it when somebody comes to me with a recipe and I just get to add my own special spices.
I like that. Just got to put a little cheese right there.
Yeah, I get to be that dude with the dude with the glasses where he's dripping the salt off his elbow or whatever.
That looks good. That's so good.
So we're going right back down here because we're getting close. We're actually almost to an hour, but Elision.
Man, what?
Dude, Elision was like the only band I couldn't find anything for online. And before this podcast, we were talking. You said you're recording stuff with Elision right now.
Yep, we are.
That is stellar. It's a must happen. I will say that first and foremost.
We've had the music part done.
Yeah, you've been playing a while.
But we've had the music tracked for a while, and we actually just finished up vocals before a Davenport show, and then we switched singers. So we finished up everything, and then we switched singers. And then it was like, well, we're not going to put that stuff out with the old singer because that's not who we are anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So stripped all the vocal tracks, and now we're trying to just finish up the vocals, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So the only time you can hear, we have Cannibal Jesus out on 107.7 Gator. It streams on there. Stream station out of Florida.
Cool.
They actually helped us put a single together because I got a message like 8:30 in the morning. Seth from Widow 7 suggested us being on this radio station with them. They're like, yo, you want to be on, interview tomorrow? Yeah, of course. Awesome. And I was like, Seth recommended this? Of course. Yeah, man, that's great. Thanks. And then, so you guys got a single. And we're like, well, yeah, the music part. It's like, well, kind of one of the deals is you gotta have a single, like, to release. That's kind of our format. So this guy was gracious enough. We sent mixing genius, guru. Like, I called him, yeah, he's just a wizard. We sent him the tracks. And then we had some live audio that he tried to mesh, which didn't work. But then we forgot because Sam lives 3 hours away. So we would do rough demos from our house and send them to her. And then she would track them, and send them back to us and see how, what we thought, any adjustments. And just so happened she had a very isolated, clean track to that exact instrumental we sent them. So she sent that off, and then, oh my God, we had a single out in like 24 hours. Like,
oh, that's cool.
It came out really good. And it was like, holy shit. But so, yeah, it's just getting us back in with, we've been recording with Jeff Stone, and right now he's recording Traffic Death.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only reason we haven't made it back in there with him right now, because Sam lives in Kansas. So basically she has to come down on the weekend, and so Traffic Death, hurry up. Let me get back. Do good, but be faster.
Jeff Stone does good work, I'll tell you that. I recorded the majority of a demo with a band with Jeff Stone that we never got it finished, unfortunately. But he ended up giving us like some rough mixes and some like mix downs and things like that. Freaking sounded awesome. So yeah, he knows what he's doing over there. That's for sure.
We've been fortunate too, because one, Jeff kind of gave us a set price, and then we came in and we knew our stuff, but then again, we didn't. Like, we knew our stuff, but he gave us the ability to actually give us time to be like, listen back and be like, which is adjust something, which is hard when you're in a room together and sounds are blending. So he actually let us come in there and be able to play a little bit, and then give us a little bit of opinion or like, what do you think about this spot a little bit, or, like, he was really good at work with us, and I wanted to work with him because he's bass player for them all. And, he's a great bass player. And I was like, if anybody can capture what I'm trying to go for on bass, it'll be him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another reason with Jeff, just because I thought he got the musical concept. His Maul was so off the wall. And, they did these changes, which we do a lot, but they're very contained. Like, you have to be paying attention to hear, like, the little changes and the little riff movements on the overlay and basic rhythm. Like, it's one of those concepts. So I was like, Jeff would be the man to do us, and that's how we end up picking him. And it's been great. It's just the fact we had the issue with Steven, and then we got Sam, and then we had like 6 shows we had to finish with Sam. Like, she had 2 weeks to get ready and just came in and just finished off our schedule. And then now we're in like a break where I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. I want to play. But so we're like, oh, let's finish the studio. We've been working on a full new merch lineup for all next year for every season. Like, we're doing the behind the scenes work now, kind of podcasting, regularly reviews. I'll do the social media stuff, which is tiresome. But I learned years ago, you got to keep up with the tech, because I come from the MySpace days before Facebook hit and got big. And I remember Transpose didn't do the switch to Facebook, and it about murdered us. Ooh. So then I've just I got to keep up on the trends, unfortunately, if you want to be heard.
Yeah, it's a thing.
I learned the hard way. So
yep. So everybody snag your TikToks. Get out there and snag your TikTok handles. You're already too late, but you better be on there.
Yep. Well, I wonder what the next best big thing is going to be.
I don't know. There's a handful of new social medias popping up. Everyone's hopping on, but I don't know.
I can't keep track.
I don't know if I have energy for it anymore.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It's a very daunting task, and I'm very thankful that with most of the other bands that I've ever been in, I was not in charge of the social media. I mean, I was to an extent, but like you know, when it was like, hey, I don't know if I want to post every week anymore on this, and somebody else will do it, and it's like, thank you, I appreciate it so much because I need the break or whatever. But
oh yeah, it's split up between us and Elision, so
nice.
Everybody takes their little corner that they like, and then some of us will chime in once in a while.
Ah, cool.
Sections, you know, like Sam pretty much does the Instagram, but once in a while, Wade and I will be like, "Here we are," and then we're back. You know,
Yeah.
You know, Wade kind of does a lot of the TikTok because he's sneaky and nobody knows he's doing. But then Sam will like do this elaborate videos that gets put on there, you know. And I mainly handle the Facebook and the Twitter, and you know, it's a lot though. It's like I now understand like why people have social media managers.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's like literally, it takes away, if you're doing that, it's taking away time of you practicing or playing or writing.
Yeah, or working your day job or anything. Like literally, it takes away time away from your family. You know, you're in a band. It's not just that. You have to spend 30 minutes to an hour, you know, a day or whatever on social media to thumbs up a bunch of stuff. You know,
at least, but you know, it kind of takes away from the craft. Like, you know, like if I was spending an hour on this, that's an hour I can't be playing.
Yeah, it's an hour worth of writing.
Yep. Because I'm not the greatest musician ever. I've always had to work hard to be good. You know what I mean? What's his name? Josh. Dude walked up to me. He's like, "Tim, you're such a great bass player." And like, you know, he writes and plays. And I'm like, "Dude, that's just hard work." He's like, "I couldn't tell." I'm like, "No, it's all hard work. Like, I don't have the greatest ear. I don't have the greatest memory. It's just practice. It's passion. I just play and play and play. So by the time I play on stage, I literally don't have to think about what I'm playing."
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, fleshing out ideas when I write something, I don't know all the notes right off the hand. Like, you know, somebody like there's just people that can watch somebody play something and be like, "I got it every damn time. I know every." No, that's not me. Like, I have to put in the work. Like, I literally do. Like, I tell people, like, some bass players ask me, like, "Well, what's your best advice you can ever give me?" And I'm like, practice.
Yeah.
What about for stage show? Practice.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, the more you practice, don't have to think about, more of a stage show you can have.
Yeah.
Like, you make it where it's muscle memory, but I have to do it just because I don't have that ear. You know, I may have the hand movements, but I have to drill it over and over and over again. Like, I make a plan, like, because we practice probably 6 hours a week, like a 3 hour in a 2 or a 4 in a 2, or, you know. But on top of that, I'm also practicing another 6 to 7, 8 hours on top of that by myself. And that doesn't include analyzing 3 videos that were recorded of our practices or listening to rough recordings, picking it apart, seeing what else I can do, you know, driving around to work, you know. So I spend endless amounts of time just working at it. So,
yeah, man.
I don't know why, because I'm stupid, but you know.
It's not stupid though. Like I'm kind of the same way. I'm not the best musician. I'm certainly not the best songwriter. I'll go for that. But like, it's a lot of hard work. Not that anyone else didn't have to work hard to get to where they're at, but yeah, I feel like mine was an uphill climb the entire way, and it's still an uphill climb. Like, I'm scratching and clawing for every BPM faster I can get and every extra note I can toss in there, you know, like.
No, I mean, hard work does pay off, though.
It does. I mean, look at you. Look at you, man. It does.
Oh, man. But, I mean, I appreciate those people that can, like David, our new guitarist. First time he came and played, he was trying out for us. He played basically 2 of our songs all the way through. And I'm like, how long did you, like, practice that? He's like, I listened to it for about an hour and a half yesterday. And I was like, I fucking hate you, dude. But,
I'm glad you're here, but.
Yeah, but I'm glad you're here. Fuck you, man. You want the job? That's literally how it goes. I fucking hate you. Fuck you. You want the job?
You're like, hired.
Yeah. I hate you.
That's so fun. Oh my gosh. So do you have like a time frame maybe that you know this Elision album will like possibly come out, or it's still just kind of waiting?
Hard for February. Literally, all we have to get back in and do is Sam's vocals. And she's such a professional. She probably only has all laid out and she won't make changes. And then I'll come in and redo my backing vocals. Because, with Steven, a lot of layers, a lot of ad-libs in there. I carry a lot. I do a lot vocally. But when you bring someone in like Sam, that has a complete different tone, and it has this 4-octave range, and it makes me rethink my parts. So now I'm back to the drawing board of what layers should work where, or how this should go here now. Because, you got to think, we set for a year and a half things one way, and then we switch up the vocalists, and then now it's different, So it's like the music ain't changing, but the vocal parts are. So she'll probably go in and knock her shit out pretty good, and then I'll be going in layering my stuff, and hopefully Jeff won't murder me because there's going to be a lot of what do you think, and then eventually he's going to be like, man, I don't give a, it's your shit. What do you think?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is inquisitive though.
But yeah, we're shooting for February. That was kind of our goal. We were hoping to have a single out by Christmas, Cannibal Jesus, like an official single, but just us getting back in the studio because, Traffic Desk recordings put that off a little bit. So we're shooting for February. So hopefully we'll hit it around then. Like that's our goal.
Nice. So. Well, I'll tell you what, if anyone wants to keep up on that, the social media links will be down below for Elision. So click on them all, click follow, click like, subscribe, share, let everybody know new music's coming out. So
big thing happening.
Yeah, exactly. The vague social media post. Big things on the horizon. So, is there anything we didn't talk about? I think I got most of the high points that I had written down.
I don't know, man. I could talk forever, dude. I have stories on stories, like I've been around the block, man, and I had a question once where somebody's like, I just want to make it. And then I asked them, what's making it to you? Like, what's making it to you? Where's your line in the sand? And they're like, when do you think you've made it? And I was like, when I inspire other people.
Ooh.
And they're like, so have you did your job? I was like, I feel I do my job all the time still. So like people still like, yo, you inspired me to do this or that. And that's all I hope for. Of course, I always wanted the goal of my music to take care of myself, not make a lot of money, but that's all I could focus on is music. But, that don't always happen.
Yeah.
So now with Elision, our goal is just band takes care of band. We're not putting money in. If we make money, cool. If not, as long as we're not going in debt, that's all I care about. So,
yeah.
Just to play, inspire, hopefully.
I love it. That's some words to live by and for everyone to think about on the way out of this podcast today.
Drop some knowledge. Oh, nobody. Yeah.
I love it, dude. I love it. It's been a great one. I do have to say thank you for jumping on the podcast. Make sure, once again, everybody go down below, click those links. Tim, thank you for taking time out of your day. Don't go away. I'm just going to end the recordings, but
no, thank you for having me. Like, who thought last night I've been doing a podcast today?
No kidding. No kidding. It's that easy, everybody. All right. Yeah, I'll be right back, but thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Was that fun or was that fun? Man, it felt like I cut this one off almost too early. I did have, it's weird, the accordion schedule. I had some stuff to do after the interview, so I had to scoot real quick. But this was a fun one, and I can't wait to have Tim back on. What a great guest. Tons of fun stories. He provides a nice outlook into the scene as well. It's the positivity with the little bit of reservedness. It's the devil's advocate, but in a positive way. It's both sides of the coin that you need, and he's got them both, I think. Like I said, it was so much fun sitting down talking with him. He's got a cool band out there. I got to tell you what, you have to check it out. I've seen them live, Elision. I've played with them, not in the band, but I've played a show where they were also on the bill. Tons of fun. Got to go check it out live. Like you said, it's a mishmash of everything. It's so much fun to go watch. It's just a blend of probably your favorite types of music. So if you like rock and metal and little bits of pretty much anything else, they throw it in there. And yeah, it's great. It's great. You got to go check it out. There's links down below. do not miss out. They have an album that is set to be coming out in 2023 in the early months. So the social medias for them is the best place to find the information for everything that is Elision. There's also, we had talked about the bands Apathy Syndrome and Hours of Decay. There are social medias and things like that out there for those bands as well as places you can go online to listen to the music and things like that. So if you guys are interested in going and checking out some of his past music before you go check out some of his new music coming out, go back and check some of those out. It's tons of fun. We talked about it in the episode. You could tell that he likes to kind of throw a little bit of something in there, every now and then. Even with Apathy Syndrome and Hours of Decay, you could tell there was little bits of his influence there. You could tell there's just something in there. There were some songs where we were talking in this interview where there's bass parts in the songs where the bassist kind of goes like all by himself in some of the songs. It's like, that's cool. There's little bits of those in a couple songs here and there too as well. Talented people in all the bands. It's tons of fun to sit down and listen to that stuff and just know that the metal scene is still going, in whatever capacity it is. The Des Moines metal scene has like thinned out, but it's had a resurgence since COVID. There's a lot of bands popping back up, a lot of bands coming back out of the woodworks and playing, and Elision's one of those bands playing on those shows. Like I said, it fits the mold for a lot of different styles of music, and it's really, really fun. So if you guys are into go seeing live music, I highly suggest going to make Elision one of the bands you go see. So check out the links down below. See if you can find them coming up live. They are working in the studio to get that new album coming out in 2023. So otherwise, I gotta say once again, thanks to Tim for joining me, taking time out of his day. I put out some feelers online for some guests, and he was the first one to respond, and he was like, let's do it tomorrow, and whammo, we got it done. It's been tough getting guests in here. I've had a lot of scheduling conflicts one way or the other, whether or not I can't make it or someone else can't make it or whatnot. It's been real rough lately. So if you guys have free time during my weird windows of free time and you want to record a podcast, hit me up. If you play music or are an artist or an entertainer or something like that, Iowa-based preferably, and if not, try to convince me, I guess. I've had very, very few people outside of Iowa sneak into the podcast, and I'm very thankful for the ones that have. But I'll try to keep this Iowa-based. I'm debating whether or not to open the floor to anything that's like even remotely close to something that could be considered an art. I almost want to just start interviewing people about things that I'm interested in that may or may not have much to do with like music at all or art necessarily. Like I was really intrigued about talking to somebody who is like works construction work, but they do like finish work and all sorts of stuff, like interior work and everything. And I was just intrigued by that because, it kind of has likenesses to guitar refinishing and things like that. But that story for another time. Check out Tim's links down below with Elision. Check out the Audible Farm links down below. Don't forget to check out the Audible Farm shop. Don't forget to check out the Audible Farm Patreon video versions of the podcast, $1 a month over there on the Audible Farm Patreon. I'm out of here. Peace.